today we'll talk about the ulna. Well, ulna is also one of the large bones of the forearm, and it is lying. ये किस जगह पे होती है जी? रेडियस इसका क्या रिलेशन होगा? What will be the relation of this bone with the radius? It is lying medial to the radius, right? It is lying medial to the radius, and of course it is present. It is occupying the medial position in the forearm also. Well, ulna, I told you the ulna is basically longer than the radius. You can see ulna is longer and than the radius, whereas the radius is stronger than the ulna, right? That's why the radius is called as the large bone of the forearm. So if you've been asked the question, which bone is the large bone of the forearm? So the radius is a large bone of the forearm. The lengthwise or the slender bone that is the ulna, right? Okay. Now this ulna bone, it has got the long medullary cavity again, which is enclosed in the the compact bone, right? And this compact bone is more stronger, more thicker at the interosseous border. ठीक है, जिसका lateral border है ना, जो interosseous border, that is more stronger, more thicker. The compact bone is more thicker in this region and also along the posterior aspect up to the olecranon, back of the olecranon process. ये जो area, ठीक है, इस area में जो compact bone है strong है, ठीक है. Okay. Now, but you can अपने mic अपना off कर दें बच्चे. ये distortion जिनकी तरफ से आ रही है, please अपना mic off कर दें. Okay. Now, what is the type of the bone? What would be the type of this bone, Ji? It's
long bone.
Yes, it's a long bone. So if it's a long bone, तो इसके क्या characteristic features होंगे बेटा? It must be having a
shaft, upper end, lower end.
Shaft and lower end.
Very good. Upper end, lower end, and the shaft. ठीक है, long bone है तो इसका एक upper end होगा, एक lower end है और एक इसमें shaft है, right? अच्छा, what would be the extent of this bone? It extends from the medial aspect. You see, it is extending from the elbow to the medial aspect of the wrist. ठीक है, ये elbow से extend करती है, ठीक है, and up to the medial aspect of the wrist. We'll talk about the side determination. Okay, when we talk about the side determination, so remember one thing, that the bone, it has got the upper end and the lower end, right? So its upper end is expanded, ठीक है ना? Its upper end is expanded and it presents a hook-like projection process. You see, this is a hook-like process over here. Upper end is expanded and it is having this hook-like process that is called as the olecranon process, ठीक है? And the concavity of this process, it is projecting anteriorly, ठीक है, इसकी जो concavity है, it is projecting anteriorly. The first point is the upper end is expanded and its concavity, it is directed anterior, ठीक है जी. And second point is this, its interosseous border, and its interosseous border, it is the sharpest one and crest-like, ठीक है, and it is directed laterally, ठीक है. इसका इंटरॉशियस बॉर्डर कैसे होगा? लेटरल होगा, टुवर्ड्स द रेडियस होगा ना, तो रेडियस आपकी इसके लेटरल साइड पे पड़ी है, so इसका इंटरॉशियस बॉर्डर विल बी आल्सो कॉल्ड एज द लेटरल बॉर्डर, राइट? सो द लेटरल बॉर्डर, इट इज द शार्पेस्ट वन, राइट? एंड द लोअर एंड, इट इज द नैरोअर वन, ठीक है. अपर एंड एक्सपेंडेड है और लोअर एंड इसका नैरोअर है, एंड इट कंसिस्ट ऑफ द टू स्मॉल प्रोसेसेस. द राउंडेड वन इज द हेड and the small process which is projecting from the posteromedial aspect of the head, that is called as a styloid process, ठीक है जी. So the points of identification for side determination is this, that number one, the upper end is expanded and presents a hook-like process, and the concavity of this process, it is directed anterior, ठीक है जी. And then the interosseous border is the lateral one and it is sharpest, ठीक है. And the lower end, it is the rounded and having a process which is directed, which is projecting from posteromedial to the head, that is called as the styloid process. कोई problem तो नहीं है बच्चे यहाँ तक? Is it clear? As far as the parts of the bone is concerned, I told you it's a long bone and it is having the upper end and the lower end, right? And a shaft, upper end, lower end, and the shaft. If you have a look over the upper end, it is having the the upper end, right? The upper end, it is having the two curved processes. ये देखें, ये एक curved process ये है और एक curved process ये है, ठीक है ना? It's project also curved upward anteriorly, right? This one. So this, it has got the two curved processes. One is the olecranon process and the other one is the coronoid process. ठीक है जी? तो problem तो नहीं बचे. Hello, upper end, it has got the two curved processes. The one is the olecranon process and the other one is the coronoid process. Beside this, these two processes, upper end, it also consists of the two articulating surfaces. ठीक है जी? Or the two articulating concave notches. The first one over here, that is this one, this concavity, this is called the trochlear notch, and the other one is the radial notch. ठीक है जी? हेलो, आवाज आ रही है बेटे? की प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है? So the first concavity is the trochlear notch and the other one is the radial notch. Now we'll talk about these parts one by one. First of all, we'll talk about the olecranon process. The olecranon process is a larger one. It's a large, thick, curved eminence. You see, it's a large, thick, and curved eminence present at the posterior part of the bone. The bone है ना बेटा, ये इसका ये posterior part है, और this one is the anterior part, right? So the olecranon process क्या है? It is a large, thick, curved eminence which is situated at the posterior part of the ulna, and it bends forwards at the summit. ठीक है? It at its upper end, इसका जो upper end है, it bends forward and forms a prominent lip. ठीक है? Prominent edge बना रहा है, which is received by the olecranon fossa of the humerus. Olecranon fossa कहाँ पे होता है humerus में जी? जी.
Posterior surface
posterior
of
side पे.
humerus.
Good. Here you can see on the posterior aspect of the lower end of the humerus. Okay? This is the olecranon fossa, and it is going to receive that, you see, the bent part of the olecranon process. ठीक है जी? Here you can see. ठीक है? And और ये किस वक्त इसमें olecranon fossa में जाएगा जी? When the knee is, sorry,
Extension के दौरान.
when the elbow is extended. ठीक है? When the elbow is extended, ठीक है ना? तो extended position में it is just going to enter into the olecranon fossa. शाबाश. Okay, now this olecranon fossa, olecranon process, it has got 5 surfaces. ठीक है बेटा? It has got this one is the anterior surface, right? Here you can see the posterior surface. This one is the lateral surface, and over here this one is the medial surface. ठीक है? And here this one is a superior surface. It has got a 5 surfaces: anterior, posterior, lateral, superior, and the medial surface. Now if you talk about the anterior surface is smooth and concave. Okay? It is projecting anteriorly, of course, right? It is smooth and concave, and it is going to form the upper part of the trochlear notch. ठीक है? ये trochlear notch का upper part बना रहा है. ठीक है? This one. The anterior surface of the olecranon process, it is going to form the upper part of the trochlear notch. ये पूरी की trochlear notch है ना, जिसका upper part is formed by the olecranon and lower part is formed by the coronoid process. ठीक है? हम इसके बारे में बाद में बात करेंगे. So the anterior surface of the olecranon process, it is formed by it is smooth and the concave, and it is contributed by the upper part of the it is contributed to the upper part of the trochlear notch. Now the posterior surface over here, this one, or over here you can see over there. So the posterior surface means it is directed backwards. Of course, posterior है ना, so it will be directed backwards, and it forms a triangular area. ये आप triangular area देख रहे हैं posterior surface पे? Its apex is directed downwards, and this is on a base. So it is going to form the triangular area, and this is a subcutaneous area. ठीक है ना? You can feel at the back of your elbow. Just flex your elbow, you can just feel the olecranon process. ठीक है ना? This triangular area. This is called as subcutaneous. ठीक है? You can feel it below the skin, and it is separated from the skin by a bursa. ठीक है? मैंने आपको बताया था ना, wherever the bone is just going to be is going to be in contact with the in relation with the any tendon or the muscle or skin. तो वहाँ पे क्या होगा? There is a bag. It's a bag of fluid. It's a bag of fluid over, right? That is called as a bursa. Okay. So it is, separated from the skin by the bursa. No, and inferiorly, you see this posterior surface over here, inferiorly by its apex, it is going to be continuous with the posterior border of the ulna. Okay. It is going to be continuous with the posterior border of the shaft of the ulna. And as I told you before, that its upper part is going to form the point of the elbow. You can feel on the, over your own elbow, right? Okay. Now, the medial surface, of course, medial surface of follicular process, it is going to be continuous with the medial surface of the shaft of the elbow, right? And the lateral surface, over have a look over the lateral surface of this follicular process. This is, smooth. It is just smooth surface over here, right? And now over the superior surface, here you can see this one superior surface. It is quadrilateral. Okay, superior surface quadrilateral, and it is marked in its lower part. Just बेटा जहाँ पे समझ नहीं आएगा प्लीज आप just stop me and ask me. ठीक है, जहाँ पे you feel a problem, you can stop me and you can ask me. Okay.
सर आपने कौन सी सरफेस का बताया कि वो स्मूथ होती है?
Lateral surface बेटा. ठीक है.
ठीक है, thank you sir.
Now, here you can see the superior surface over there, right? Yes, superior surface has got the two parts. The posterior part is quadrilateral, and it has got the two parts, the posterior part and the anterior part. The posterior part is rough, okay? Because it is going to receive the attachment of the triceps muscles. ठीक है जी, triceps muscle जो है आपका, it is going to be attached over the roughened part of the superior surface of the olecranon process, right? और इसके एंटीरियरली यू कैन सी दिस मार्जिन, ठीक है, ये ब्लू लाइनिंग है ना यहाँ पे द ट्राइसेप्स की जो इंसर्शन, इसके आप एंटीरियरली देखिए तो यहाँ पे दिस मार्जिन ऑफ द olecranon process, राइट? दिस मार्जिन इट इज हैविंग अ ट्रांसवर्स ग्रूव, और यहाँ पे द पोस्टीरियर लिगामेंट ऑफ द एल्बो जॉइंट यहाँ पे अटैच होता है, ठीक है? सो ऑन द superior surface दो अटैचमेंट है, पोस्टीरियरली रफेंड सरफेस के ऊपर ट्राइसेप्स मसल, और एंटीरियर जो इसकी ग्रूव पड़ा हुआ है, ठीक है, इस ग्रूव में देयर इज अटैचमेंट ऑफ द पोस्टीरियर लिगामेंट. कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है बेटा यहाँ तक? इज इट क्लियर? ओके. नाउ ऑन द मीडियल aspect or the medial border of the olecranon process, there are two structures that are attached. Above, the ulnar collateral ligament is attached over there, and here you can see the attachment of the flexor carpi ulnaris muscle. ठीक है, तो जो medial border है इसका olecranon process का, इस पे the ulnar collateral ligament attached है और the flexor carpi ulnaris is attached. And on the lateral border पे the posterior ligament जो कि ये उसके upper margin के साथ आ रहा था, ठीक है, lateral यहाँ पे the posterior ligament of the elbow is attached, and over here the extension of the insertion of the anconeus muscle is attached, right? So on the medial border दो चीजें attached हैं. Number one, ulnar collateral ligament. Number two, the flexor carpi ulnaris की origin है, extend हो रही है यहाँ तक, right? और on the lateral margin, lateral corner or the lateral border, यहाँ पे क्या है जी? The posterior ligament is attached, and then the extension of the insertion of the anconeus muscle. You see this is the insertion of the anconeus muscle, and it is extending up to the lateral border of the olecranon process. Is it clear जी? कोई problem तो नहीं है बच्चे? कोई problem है तो you can ask me बच्चे. ठीक है जी, आगे चले जी. Okay जी. Now we'll talk about the coronoid process. Coronoid मैं पहले पढ़ा चुका हूँ जी. इट्स अ ग्रीक वर्ड. इसका क्या मतलब है जी coronoid का? पहले पढ़ा चुका हूँ बेटे. Coronoid process. Coronoid process is a Greek. It's a Greek word which means a crow's beak. ठीक है? It's just like a crow's beak. ठीक है? So it is a triangular eminence. You can see this is a triangular eminence which is projecting forward. ठीक है? Olecranon process तो था ना, it is projecting upwards and posteriorly. ठीक है? The coronoid process, it is projecting.
सर वो कोराकोइड था मेरे ख्याल से.
Coracoid and coronoid meaning same. ठीक है? That is for the crow's beak. ठीक है? Okay. मैंने उस वक्त भी आपको बताया था कि it's also named as a coronoid process. Okay. Okay. So the projecting forwards from the anterior superior aspect of the ulna. ठीक है? ये olecranon process was extending upwards from the postero superior aspect of the ulna ना. and it is projecting anteriorly from the anterior superior aspect of the ulna, right? And it is present just below the olecranon process. Okay, so it is what the coronoid process. What it is a triangular eminence. What would be this definition then? It's a triangular eminence projecting forwards from the anterior superior aspect of the ulna just below the olecranon process. Is it clear, Ji? By its base, it is attached with the shaft of the ulna. Okay, it's the body of the ulna, and its apex is pointed anteriorly. Okay, apex is pointed anteriorly, and it is slightly curved upwards. Okay, it is slightly curved upwards like this, slightly curved upwards, and it is going to be received where, जी? ये कहाँ पे receive? When there is a flexion of the elbow, तो ये कहाँ पे receive होगा, जी? In the
Trochlear region पे.
in the coronoid fossa, or the low in the on the lower end of the humerus. भूल गए आप? Lower end of the humerus के anteriorly दो fossas होते हैं बेटे. One is the radial fossa and other one is the coronoid. ठीक है? The radial is for the radial head, and the coronoid fossa is going to receive. You see this pointed projection, anterior projection of the coronoid process is going to be received over here in the coronoid fossa of the lower end of the humerus. Is it clear, Ji? Is it clear? Okay. Now, this coronoid process, it is going to have the four surfaces. ठीक है जी? Surfaces से कौन-कौन सी हैं जी? Of course, it has got this one, the superior surface. This one is the lateral surface. ठीक है? Other one is the anterior inferior surface, and the last one is the medial surface. ठीक है जी? The medial surface. You see, this is a process, and this is a superior surface. This is a lateral surface. This is the anterior inferior surface, and this one is the medial surface. Surfaces समझ में आई है जी coronoid process की? जी, coronoid process की surfaces समझ में आई है बेटा? I told you that it is having the superior surface over here, this one. Other one is the lateral surface, right? Then the anterior inferior surface, and the other one is the medial surface. Now we'll talk about these surfaces one by one. First of all, the superior surface. You see this superior surface. This superior surface कौन बताएगा जी? Can anybody explain this superior surface? बच्चे मैंने ऑलिगोन प्रोसेस में आपको बताई थी ना उसकी जो superior उसकी anterior surface है. That's just
Sir, lower part of trochlear notch बनाता है.
yes, very good. So this superior surface is again smooth and concave, ठीक है? And it is going to form the lower part of the trochlear notch. मैंने आपको बताया था उस पहले भी कि जो oligocon process की जो anterior surface है, it is going to form the upper part of the trochlear notch, whereas the superior surface, the coronoid process, is going to form the lower part of the trochlear notch. Is it clear, Ji? Now we'll talk about the anterior inferior surface. Okay, have a look over this anterior inferior surface over there. This anterior inferior surface again is triangular, and it is rough concave surface, right? It's triangular, rough and concave surface, and it is marked by the rough impression. ठीक है, ये rough यहाँ पे, और यहाँ पे कोई bony landmark जब बनता है जहाँ पे roughness होती है वहाँ पे क्या होता है? There is a pull of the muscle, right? There's an attachment of the muscle. So यहाँ पे the brachialis muscle is attached. ठीक है? This is triangular, rough, concave surface, and it is rough here because it is going to receive a part of the brachialis muscle. And at the junction of this, anterior inferior surface with the body, with the shaft, you can see this again, an elevated portion, roughened elevated area that is called as a tuberosity of the ulna, or the ulnar tuberosity. Okay? At the junction of the anterior inferior surface of this coronoid process with the body of the shaft of the ulna, there is again an roughened elevation that is called as the ulnar tuberosity. ठीक है जी? And this ulnar tuberosity, again I told you that it is going to receive the insertion of the brachialis muscle. The brachialis muscle कहाँ पे होता है जी? If anybody remembers, brachialis muscle किस?
Anterior surface of humerus.
So it's anterior compartment का muscle है, ठीक है? Good. अच्छा. And you can see on the lateral aspect of this tuberosity, you have seen this cord attached. The ligamentous cord is attached. That is called as the oblique cord, right? So to the lateral border of this tuberosity, the oblique cord is attached. This structure. ठीक है जी, कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है बच्चे? We'll talk about the lateral surface. Okay, have a look over this lateral surface now. This lateral surface, right? This lateral surface, it is represented in its upper part by of the surface. It has got this narrow oblong shaped concavity. ठीक है? And this articular concavity, it is called as a radial notch. ठीक है? ये एक, and it is this radial notch, it is concave from before backwards. ठीक है? ये concavity है on the upper part of the lateral surface of coronary process. ठीक है? That is named as a radial notch. और ये radial notch क्यों होती है जी? It is going to receive the circumference of the head of the radius. ठीक है ना? ठीक है? Circumference of the head of the radius, and is going to form a joint. कौन सा joint बनता है जी यहाँ पे? Superior radioulnar joint. ठीक है? Superior radioulnar joint, right? And the anterior and the posterior margins of this concavity, these are going to receive the attachment of the ligament that is named as the annular ligament. ठीक है जी? Annular ligament इसके anterior and the posterior margin पे attach होते हैं, so that it is going to form a ring in which the head of the radius rotates. ठीक है जी? Okay. Now in the lower part of this lateral surface, you see there is a depression. ये जो है ना जी radial notch, इसके नीचे जो this part of the lateral surface that is having it is depressed, and this depression is for what? ये depression यहाँ पे क्यों होगा जी? Common sense. इस radial notch के नीचे जो
टेंडन के पैसेज के लिए
नहीं बेटे, ये देखिए ये यहाँ पे क्या पड़ा हुआ है? What is this?
रेडियल ट्यूबरोसिटी के लिए.
ठीक है, जब हेड रोटेट करेगा तो रेडियल ट्यूबरोसिटी जो है इट विल आल्सो गोइंग टुवर्ड्स मीडियली ना. ठीक है, तो उसको अकोमोडेट करने के लिए देयर इज अ डिप्रेशन just below the radial notch. There is a depression on the lower part of the lateral surface, or that is just going to accommodate the radial tuberosity. ठीक है बेटा, कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है? ठीक है, और ये जो रेडियल ट्यूबरोसिटी है ना हेयर, ये जो रेडियल ट्यूबरोसिटी के लिए जो गैप है, इट इज लिमिटेड पोस्टीरियरली. यू सी दिस पोस्टीरियर, ये आपको रिज एक नजर आ रहा है पोस्टीरियरली, एक्सटेंडिंग फ्रॉम द पोस्टीरियर मार्जिन ऑफ द कोरोनाइड प्रोसेस. दिस वन, दिस पोस्टीरियर रिज दैट इज कॉल्ड एज द सुपिनेटर क्रेस्ट. ठीक है, जहां पे आपके सुपिनेटर मसल अटैच होता है, राइट? सो दिस डिप्रेस्ड एरिया in the lower part of the lateral surface of the coronary process, it is limited posteriorly by this crest that is called as the supinator crest. ठीक है जी, कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है बच्चे? Okay, now we'll talk about the okay जी. Now we'll talk about the articular surfaces, that is the trochlear notch and the radial notch. ठीक है जी? Trochlear notch जो है, I told you, the trochlear notch, it is going to form an articular surface. ठीक है? That articulates with the trochlea of the humerus. ठीक है जी? कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है? ठीक है ना, हम ये पहले पढ़ चुके हैं, right? This trochlear notch, it is going to form the articular surface that is going to articulate with the trochlea of the humerus to form the elbow joint, right? And you can also define it like this, that is a large depression basically formed by the oblique process in the upper part and the coronary process in the lower part. Is it clear ji? So trochlear notch की formation क्या है? It's a depression which is formed by the concavity which is formed by the oblique process in the upper part and the coronary process in the lower part. And this concavity or this articular surface of the trochlear notch, well, trochlear notch is also called as a semilunar notch. You remember this one, okay? The trochlear notch is also called as a semilunar half moon, right? It's a semilunar notch, right? And it is divided into the medial and the lateral parts. Medial and the lateral part by this vertical ridge, this vertical smooth ridge, which extends from where? Which extends from the tip of the, you see, it extends from the summit of the olecranon to the tip of the coronary process. ठीक है, ये यहाँ से शुरू होगा और ये tip of the coronary process तक आएगा, right? This ridge, right? So it is divided into the medial and the lateral. Well, the medial portion is larger than the lateral, right? So the medial portion and the lateral portion by the smooth ridge which is running from the summit of the olecranon to the tip of the coronary process. कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है बच्चे? And as far as the radial notch is concerned, तो radial notch मैंने आपको बता दिया है कि radial notch is what? It is the narrow oblong articulating surfaces, the depression on the lateral aspect of the coronary process, and it receives the circumference of the radius, head of the radius, right? And is going to form the superior radial joint, and it's elevated, and it is concave from before backwards. Concave before backwards, उसके anterior and the posterior projecting margins पे क्या attach होता है जी? Annular ligament attach. यहाँ तो कोई problem तो नहीं है बच्चे? We have finished with the upper end of the humerus. कोई problem है तो पूछ लें जी. Anybody जी? बच्चे कोई problem है तो you can ask me now, right now. Okay, now we'll talk about the shaft. ठीक है? We'll talk about the shaft. Shaft has got the three parts: the upper part, the middle part, and the lower part. Right? The upper part, it is prismatic, prismoid in shape, triangular, three borders, three surfaces. Right? The central part, and you see this upper part, it is directed, it is convex backwards and posterolaterally जो है ना बेटा, it is directed posterolateral. ठीक है? Right? Its upper part, it is curved, it is convex posterolaterally. Whereas the middle part, if you look for the middle part is straight. ठीक है जी? And the lower part, it is rounded and smooth. ठीक है? Shaft का जो lower part है, it is rounded and smooth. ठीक है? And this shaft, it is tapering from gradually from upside down. ठीक है? ये ऊपर से when you're going to twist down, ऊपर से ये it is broader and below it is tapering gradually downwards. ठीक है जी? कोई problem तो नहीं है बच्चे? This bone, it has got the three borders and the three surfaces. जी कुछ question है जी? सुफियान बोला है. हेलो यार, आज आप लोगों की नेट स्पीड बड़ी कम है, आपकी आवाज मुझे समझ नहीं आ रही.
सर मैं चुप हूँ सर.
अभी किसने कुछ इसके माइक ऑन हुआ था, मैं क्या शायद आपका माइक ऑन हुआ. ओके, so as far as the body is concerned, or shaft is concerned, it has got the three borders and three surfaces. First of all, the anterior border. Other one is the introitious border or the lateral border, and the other one is the posterior border. ठीक है जी? And then the posterior border. Yes, यार ये posterior border. Is it clear जी? Okay. Now, the anterior border. Anterior border जो है बेटा, it is thick and rounded. ये thick है and rounded. It begins from where? It begins from the. I just show you another picture more clearly. Okay, so it extends from the medial aspect of the tuberosity. You see, medial aspect of the ulnar tuberosity, and it is going towards the medial aspect of the styloid process. ठीक है? ये medial aspect of the ulnar tuberosity start होगा and is going to end at the medial side of the styloid process. ठीक है जी? Anterior border. This one is anterior border. Right? Okay, and this anterior border, it is going to separate the anterior surface from the medial surface. ठीक है ना? इसके इस साइड पे यहाँ पे medial surface है, तो ये इसका margin, right? ये anterior surface को medial surface से separate कर रहा है. Anterior border, I repeat it again, it starts from the medial margin of the ulnar tuberosity and going downwards and ends at the medial aspect of the styloid process. ठीक है? Styloid process के medial aspect, and it is going to separate the anterior surface from the medial surface. ठीक है जी? And in the upper part, it is well defined. ठीक है? And in the middle part, it is going to give origin to the muscle that is the flexor digitorum profundus muscle. ठीक है जी? यहाँ पे flexor digitorum profundus, and the lower part, यहाँ पे the lower 1/4 is going to give origin to the pronator quadratus. I just showed it. You can see anterior border ये आ रहा है. ठीक है? Medial margin of the tuberosity से. ठीक है? And it is going to, in the upper 3/4, it is going to give origin to the flexor digitorum profundus. This is the flexor digitorum profundus. and in the lower one foot it is going to give origin to the pronator quadratus muscle over here. ठीक है जी, दो मसल्स यहाँ से ओरिजिनेट कर रहे हैं. प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है बेटा? इज इट क्लियर? Okay, we'll talk about the dorsal border. Okay जी, dorsal border के लिए ज़्यादा बेहतर कौन सा है? Okay, now the dorsal border, you see this one, the dorsal border, right? The dorsal border, it is subcutaneous, ठीक है? You can feel by yourself or your own, forearm, ठीक है? You can feel it subcutaneous on the dorsal aspect of your forearm, ठीक है? So it is subcutaneous border, ठीक है बेटा? And it begins. मैंने इसलिए कहा था ना कि इसका जो dorsal surface है और dorsal part of the auricular process, it is made up of the thick compact form, ठीक है? क्योंकि subcutaneous है. It has to be contact in the exterior, ठीक है ना? So it begins at the apex of the triangular area at the back of the auricular process. Told you ना कि auricular process के back पे there is a triangular area, the subcutaneous area, right? So it is continuous with the apex of the triangular area, subcutaneous area on the back of the auricular process, and it is going to continuous downwards, ठीक है? And ends at the posterior aspect of the styloid process, ठीक है जी? Posterior aspect of the styloid process तक आवाज, ठीक है बेटे? It is well marked at the upper 3/4, ठीक है? Lower 1/4 you can see it is smooth and the rounded, ठीक है? लेकिन it is more projecting sharp where at the upper 3/4. और यहाँ पे sharp क्यों है? Because of the attachment of the aponeurosis. यहाँ पे एक aponeurosis attach होता है. Aponeurosis क्या होता है जी? Can anybody tell me what is an aponeurosis? अब तो न्यू कमर्स भी बता सकते हैं, उनकी भी क्लासेस हो रही है ना. What is aponeurosis बच्चे? Aponeurosis क्या होता है जी? The thickening of the deep fascia, is it or not? मैंने आपको deep fascia के बताए थे ना कि क्या क्या फेट हैं. Deep fascia क्या क्या करता है? Aponeurosis बनाता है, pulleys बनाता है, right? और क्या क्या करता है deep fascia? किसी को याद नहीं है.
Intermuscular septum.
Intermuscular septus बनाता है, fascial sleeves बनाता है, ठीक है? So the aponeurosis again is a thickening of the deep fascia basically, or the one of the forms of the deep fascia, which is attached over this projecting part, the upper 3/4 of the posterior border of the ulna. और यहाँ जहाँ पे ये इस किस्म का process aponeurosis होता है तो वो क्या कर रहा होता है बेटे? It is going to give origin to the certain attachments to the certain muscles, ठीक है? So the posterior aspect के ऊपर this aponeurosis is going to give attachment to the certain muscles. वो कौन से muscles हैं बच्चे? This is the, you see, here you can see this is auricular process का triangular area है जी. ये posterior border आ रहा है और इसके ऊपर this white line, right? यहाँ पे क्या अटैच होगा? aponeurosis. उस aponeurosis के साथ मसल कौन से अटैच है? You can see the flexor carpi ulnaris, the extensor carpi ulnaris, and the flexor digitorum profundus. ठीक है? So this aponeurosis is basically going to give common origin, is going to give the origin to the flexor carpi ulnaris muscle here, then the extensor carpi ulnaris and the flexor digitorum profundus muscle. Is it clear बेटे? कोई problem तो नहीं है? And I told you that is its lower 1/4 is smooth, ठीक है, and rounded. Okay, this posterior border is going to separate which two surfaces जी? कौन सी surface को separate करेगा जी? Dorsal surface को separate करेगा from the medial surface, ठीक है? Anterior border किसको separate कर रहा था? Anterior surface को medial surface separate कर रहा था. Dorsal border is going to separate the dorsal surface from the this one. ये medial surface है, ठीक है? और ये dorsal surface है और ये border आ रहा है. So ये dorsal surface को separate कर रहा है किससे? Medial surface separate कर रहा है. Is it clear जी? Concept develop हुआ कि नहीं? बोलो यार. जाग जाओ बच्चे.
Yes sir, हो गया.
Sure. Now the interosseous border. Here you can see the interosseous border, and I told you there's the thickest and the sharpest border, right? The thickest part of the bone, of the compact bone, is present in this interosseous border. This interosseous border is also called as the. ये कौन सा border क्या लाएगा जी? It is also towards the radius, so it is the lateral border also, right?
Lateral.
But don't do something like this. Don't make the lines. Who's that chap? Okay, thank you. So look over here. It's going to form what? It's forming a lateral border. And it is used as a sharpest and crest-like. So it is also called as a introitious crest. ठीक है बेटे? And superiorly, this crest, it is going to be continuous. I'll just show you. Here, you can see this introitious border, and superior is going to continuous with this crest. This is called as, मैंने आपको बताया था जी, ये posterior aspect of the radial notch से crest आती है, which runs along with the which is just going down to continuous with the posterior border. That is called as a supinator crest. You see, right? So superiorly, it is going to be continuous with the supinator crest. Well. Okay, and inferiorly, it is going to be lateral aspect of the head. You see, okay? It is superiorly, it is going to be continuous with the supinator crest, and inferiorly, it is going towards the lateral aspect of the head. You see, the lateral aspect of the head, right? And it is going to separate what? Separate the anterior surface from the dorsal. This is dorsal surface. ठीक है, ये आपका डशस बॉर्डर है, तो इसके इस तरफ सरफेस कौन सी है? एंटीरियर सरफेस, राइट? सो दिस बॉर्डर इज गोइंग टू सेपरेट द डोर्सल सरफेस फ्रॉम द anterior surface. Anterior surface is also called as the volar surface. VOLAR. Anterior surface is also called as the volar surface. Anterior border is also called as the volar border. Is it clear बच्चे? ठीक है जी? Right? तो प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है. And as you know that this introitious border है, तो यहाँ पे क्या चीज अटैच होगी जी? Introitious border पे क्या चीज अटैच होगी बच्चे?
Introitious membrane.
Introitious membrane, right? It's being given to the introitious membrane. Okay, very good. Now we're going to talk about the surfaces one by one. Okay, have a look over the anterior surface over here, right? So anterior surface, it lies between the two borders. ये कौन कौन से borders के दरमियान में होगी जी, अभी बताएं? Anterior border and the introitious border, right?
Medial border.
ठीक है, volar